Hello, everyone. I have a second screen next to me to figure out all of these technology aspects. So if you see me looking over there, that is on a second screen and it's actually very distracting. So let me move this around. But it looks like it's all working, which makes me so happy because it's the very first LinkedIn Live and never done this before, a little bit scared, but we've got this. And I can see you guys are in the comments. Thank you. Thank you all for joining. I can see so many familiar names. Thank you. All right. Okay, we have an hour and a half together, which is quite long. I try to make this as entertaining as possible. The first kind of 60 minutes, we will see how long it's going to take. I'm going to deliver an insane amount of value. I go through slides. There will be depth by statistics and words. And then we have a live Q&A. So depending on how long it takes for me to go through the slides, we have time at the end to answer anything that is still left unclear. I'm by myself. I'm a one-woman show. I have a team that is helping me set it all up. But in terms of running this event today, I'm by myself. So I have an eye on the comments. I will see what you're putting in there. So thank you for showing up. And yeah, let's just see how it all goes. I'm going ahead and share my screen and see if we can get this all up and running. All right, bear with me. Here we go. Let me put this into a different view. Nice one. Okay, let me check on my second laptop. God, there's quite a time delay. I'm seeing myself talking from what I just said like 30 seconds ago. But I think we are all good. Yes, we are. Nice one. Okay, let me check with my team. They say you can hear me. That is all good. All right. So before we dive in, again, thank you for showing up. Thank you for dedicating your time towards this. I promise to deliver an insane amount of value because some of you have had the experience last week, 2 weeks ago, where I ran this session with an external partner. I was very naive getting into that partnership. And if I would have known the way how they conduct their, let's call it like sales processes, I wouldn't have joined that deal. And I want to make it up to you guys. Therefore, I decided to rerun the session, but not just a simple rerun, like to dive into an insane amount of value and adding in lots of new bits and pieces, new data, more actionable insights, frameworks that hopefully will help you getting your impressions back up. All right, one final check on the technology. All right, let's dive in. So LinkedIn has 1.2 billion users. It is such an underrated brand building and business tool. So I wanted to take, just like the first few slides, also why people are still logging in and all of these things, take a moment to just make sure that we all appreciate how much opportunity there is on this platform. So whilst there's 1.2 billion people on LinkedIn, only 1% of users actually are posting content more than once a week. So that means the platform is full of lurkers. A lot of people are on it, but hardly anyone is posting content. So if you're putting yourself out there, showing up, posting high quality insights, you can cut through the noise very easily, so much easier than on other platforms such as like Facebook, Instagram, etc. And in terms of the people on LinkedIn, 4 out of 5 members drive business decisions. So they're either founders or in senior positions that can make decisions. So this is very important for us to keep in mind, because people don't come onto LinkedIn to just switch off their mind and scroll on the internet. They come onto LinkedIn to educate themselves, to talk about business, to make business. So this is, again, like such a great opportunity to promote your business. And 90% of the buyer journey nowadays happens before ever speaking to a sales rep. So that means if someone, either they don't even know that they need your product yet and they stumble across your product, and this is then how they think about it, but also if they're actually proactively looking for something, they will ask their friends, their peers, they search the internet, they Google, they look at content, etc., before ever speaking to a sales rep. So again, thinking about LinkedIn, putting yourself out there and showing content, this is how you can influence that buyer journey before you slip into their DMs. And lastly, this is the last slide in terms of like very boring numbers, but as I said, I just wanted to ease us in whilst people are still joining and popping up. 88% of buyers say that trust is the number one factor in making a buying decision. So again, thinking about putting yourself out there, building credibility slowly over time will give you that opportunity to build that credibility and trust with people when they then decide to go into a sales process with you. And the question is, why should you trust me to give you LinkedIn advice? I know some of you follow me for a while already, but some of you might not know me. And those who have been following me for a while, they will be so bored when you see the next few slides, because you have seen them before. But to give you some background, I'm originally from Germany, and the last 15 years I was in B2B tech sales at like the world's biggest organizations, from SAP, MasterCard, Gartner, Hootsuite, and most recently LinkedIn. And also, as you can see, I was a lot heavier and I had a terrible haircut. Thank God those times are over. But when I was at LinkedIn, my job was to, by the way, I have a LinkedIn mug. Hold on. I thought I'd make this very on brand here. When I was at LinkedIn, my job was to advise those multi-billion-dollar businesses, the world's largest organizations, they were mainly in the staffing world, on how to use LinkedIn. On the one hand, to attract talent, but also on the other end, on how to generate business. And I was teaching them in terms of like LinkedIn product, sales navigator, LinkedIn recruiter, advertisement, premium, etc. But also in terms of like the whole 360 view is how to put out content. How should employees put out content? How should executives put out content? But I was such a hypocrite because I didn't post myself at all on LinkedIn. Bear with me 1 second. I'm just checking. Everything is all good. Yes, everything is all good. It's so weird. Like, I'm just sitting here in my room talking to myself. I have no idea, because the other screen, I had to put this on the side because it was very distracting. So I can't see your comments anymore. I have no idea. Let me actually see if I can quickly swap this around. Nice. I can still see you guys popping up in the comments. Nice, 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 nice. All right, let me go back to the presentation. All right. By the way, you will see a lot of memes in that presentation. Because I just try to make this a little bit entertaining. LinkedIn is so unsexy and so boring. So I try to make this a bit of a more fun place. You would have seen this with my own content and the way how I respond to other people's posts with memes and everything. I think the world needs a little bit of happiness and laughter. And I think LinkedIn in particular, we need a little bit more fun. Anyhow, going back to the slides. I was such a hypocrite because I never really posted content myself. So I was basically a personal trainer telling someone how to lose weight, but never picked up weights myself. And so I made the decision back in February this year, so about like 10 months ago, I put out a very public post saying, watch my own LinkedIn grow from 2,000 followers at this point to 10,000 followers in 3 months. And I had no idea whether that would be easy or hard or what to do. Because as a LinkedIn employee, people assume that we know how to put out content, that we understand everything, and that we are like really, really active on the platform. We aren't. It's not really part of the culture. It's not part of the onboarding process. Nobody tells you. We don't know how the algorithm works. I get onto that. So I just made a decision on my own account, and thank fucking God, in April, 1 day before the deadline, I did hit that target. it was tough. It was doable, but it was tough. A lot of people say like, oh yeah, it's easy for you because you worked at LinkedIn, or it's easy for you because you're a woman and you have long blonde hair and all of these things. Maybe I had some advantages. I don't know. It's impossible to say. I did speak to another LinkedIn employee who has now left as well, and she posted about 12 months before I started. And she also had around 2,000 followers, and she grew by around 2,000 followers in the same amount of time. So for me, being now at over 30,000 followers, that shows that there was a lot of work involved. It was not just luck. And I'm going to share with you later on as well, like how I grew my audience and what I was doing. But also you wouldn't be here on this webinar right now if you wouldn't think that the content I'm putting out is valuable. So here we go. And then in June, let me double check technology. Yeah, we are all good. In June, I actually decided to hand in my notice at LinkedIn. When I started putting myself out there, so many opportunities came my way that I decided I'm starting my own business. And this is now where we are, a few months into having my own business, and a lot of amazing things happened, doors opened, and I stopped talking about myself in a minute. So I just wanted to make sure, because this is, as I said, like the first time I'm doing a LinkedIn Live, and I see messages popping up in my Teams chat, and I just needed to make sure we are all fine. And I promise to you that there will be a lot more value coming towards you. All right, quick shout out to the team. Thank you everyone who is working with me. We are growing and growing, and it's so exciting doing this with other people and not just by myself anymore. And now, as promised, we get into the great LinkedIn reach drop, what changed and how to fix it. I mentioned it earlier. Nobody knows how the algorithm exactly works. Unless you work at LinkedIn inside the algorithm team, nobody knows how it works. If anyone claims to know how it works, they're lying. We can make assumptions. We can read a lot of documents and papers. I'll show you in a second the research that I have done. But they are very secretive around it, because obviously if they would make it public, everyone would try to game the system. It would not be fair. It wouldn't be a great experience on the feed, because everyone is just, yeah, as I said, gaming the system. What I did do is, obviously, you know, I used to work at LinkedIn. I'm a LinkedIn content creator myself, and now I have a business advising other people about LinkedIn. So I have a huge interest to understand how LinkedIn works. I follow all of these people on the slide. So they are all tied to the engineering team at LinkedIn, or are very high up, like, for example, the CEO. So I continuously see what are they putting out, what articles do they write, what are they talking about in terms of how the algorithm is changing. Plus, there was the first credible research paper published in October that I went through. Oh my God, that was so technical and so difficult. But this was the first time where LinkedIn actually gave us a bit more of an insight into how the feed is actually working and how their new LLM is working, because we have all seen a massive change. The change in the algorithm in terms of timings, it happened around July, August time. It then took a little bit of time for all of us to understand something honestly has changed, all of our impressions have dropped. And this is across the whole board. This is not just a certain segment of users, it's across the whole board. So it took a while for us all to be like, shit, what is happening? And this is now all the research that I've put together. You see by date whenever I found something, when they have published it, to cut through the noise and let you know what's been going on. Before we dive in, you need to understand LinkedIn's business strategy, how LinkedIn makes money. We all know LinkedIn is not Facebook for jobs. LinkedIn is an $18 billion data software and media company. And whilst LinkedIn's vision is to create economic opportunity for every member of the global workforce, LinkedIn is not a charity, which is fine. There is no issues in having a business that wants to make money. And also LinkedIn's products and services, they do enable a lot of organizations to do incredible things for the world and make the planet a better place to be. So that's absolutely fine, but we just need to keep in mind that LinkedIn's ultimate motives is to make money. They're not just there for the fun of it, or, as I said, like a charity. LinkedIn is owned by Microsoft. In 2016, Microsoft bought LinkedIn for like $23.2 billion, something like this, all cash transaction. And Microsoft has shareholders. And obviously, number one priority is to make shareholders happy by giving them revenue. Therefore, LinkedIn's number one goal is to create the best feed possible. How do they do this? So first of all, if the feed is incredibly well set up, that means in other regions of the world, like the UK and the US, Australia as well, and other parts in Europe, LinkedIn is very saturated, meaning most people have a LinkedIn profile, but there are so many other regions in the world. I was just chatting to someone in Taiwan. LinkedIn is hardly used over there. So LinkedIn's goal, by having a great feed, more users will join the platform in the first place. Then the users who are already on the platform, they will log in more frequently if they have a good experience. They will scroll for longer, which then also means more opportunity for LinkedIn to make money, to sell their data. By the way, LinkedIn doesn't sell the data, but they sell access to the data. If anyone has questions around this, happy to explain more. Advertisement spend, their products like LinkedIn Recruiter, Premium Sales Navigator, etc. So high interest for LinkedIn to have an amazing feed. And the question is, how is the feed actually getting better with the new algorithm? And I know we are all here because we are very fed up with how it all works, but actually, in theory, it is better. And I explain to you why. Let's look into how the old algorithm worked. Previously, the feed was predominantly, if not only, from your direct network. So that means whenever someone posted and there was a lot of engagement around it, it could be easily influenced, meaning it could be gamed. And that led in the end to a circulation of lower value attention-seeking content. And it mainly benefited accounts that already had a large following, or those who were just like really savvy in manipulating the system. Therefore, in the end, as I said, like it doesn't really result in a great user experience. Plus, we have a lot of AI now on the platform with even more content that is being flown around. So LinkedIn needed to make sure that the feed is getting better. Therefore, the new algorithm, the new LLM kind of creates a persona-based feed, similar to a For You page. So you know when you're on TikTok, Instagram, etc., this is where you have the separate feed that is completely removed from your connections, where you just see fresh content. LinkedIn is not per se exactly separated like this, but it acts more and more like a For You page. So it's less reliant on your direct network. The system will look at who you are, what you post, and what you engage with. So your profile, your content, and your engagement. And then it puts you into a bubble with people similar to you. And then basically it shows your content to them, you see their content, you're in this bubble of your persona. That also means smaller accounts can yield a great reach because they have a small network, but if they post about something very specific, let's say, I don't know, you work in HR and you talk about the latest HR research, it will not just shown to your own network, it will shown to other HR professionals that you're not connected with. And also, you might have noticed that some posts stay alive for longer if the system believes it's relevant. I know sometimes they haven't quite nailed it because sometimes you see something where they say like, yay, I started a new job, and you see this like 3 weeks later. But they want to make sure, that important content is circulated for longer. As I said, whether they nailed it or not, that's questionable. Tim, he works at LinkedIn. He recently put out an article, and I'm sorry, this is very content heavy, but I try to guide you through it. He is saying that LinkedIn basically identified whether, I hope you can see my cursor, but they identified the context of a post and determined whether it's 1, a helpful insight, or 2, a job opportunity, or 3, a career milestone. So it puts your post into one of those 3 brackets. And I can tell you firsthand, I've posted a job opportunity recently for one of my clients that had insane reach. So I know LinkedIn must be somewhat artificially boost that one. Career milestone, I've also seen this across the board with my clients and with other people that I'm connected with. Whenever they share a new position, natively, for example, or also if they just talk about it and I say like, I'm pleased to announce that I'm now doing blah, 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 those also perform incredibly well. So I think those two are definitely somewhat artificially, again, nobody knows the algorithm. What I'm saying is a hypothesis, but they're artificially boosted. And then helpful insight is basically the rest of the content. And they're saying it's depending on your preferences. So what you set in your settings, the interest that you have selected on your profile, who you're connected to, and what posts you engage with will all determine what you're seeing in your feed. And then they also say, apart from all of that, if there is content that is exceptional, it can also be artificially distributed to other members. This is what you see in your feed when it says suggested. So this is what I mean with smaller accounts. They can also get broader reach. And they basically say it all works by first understanding whether your content resonates with its audience. So they try to really understand, is your content of value? And if so, then they're happy to put your content out further to other people. And they're saying they are looking at your profile, such as your experience. So who do you currently work for? Content you shared previously, etc., your skills. And they say it does not factor in any demographic information, such as age, race, or gender. And we get onto gender in particular later on. Next one, Rishi also put out a post. I try to go through this a little bit more quickly because I don't want to bore you to death. Basically, two types of content, kind of as we're already saying. Connected content is the content that comes from your direct network. And then unconnected content is the content that is being shared by someone you're not connected with, unconnected, but LinkedIn believes it's relevant to you. What they are saying explicitly is you're not seeing as many personal posts. Hey, I got married, for example. I didn't, but as an example, that you aren't connected with. So they want to limit that because it's irrelevant to you. It's not like a thought leadership topic that you will be interested in. It's a random person that got married. Who gives a shit? Or he also says in terms of clickbait territory, so content that has no substance. So they try to really understand high quality. And then again, lastly, the feed is being updated in real time based on your actions. So this is very similar. I love TikTok. So when you scroll on TikTok and you click on like a dog video and you watch the dog video like 2 seconds too long, all you see is dog videos afterwards. Same on LinkedIn. You go onto the feed and it updates in real time. When you engage with a post around HR, let's say again, you will then continue to see HR content. All right. There is a big conundrum. And before I go into this, I let you enjoy this lovely meme. And I have a look if the technology is all working. I think it is all working. Let me check in on the comments. Nice. Nice, nice, nice. It seems to be all working fine. Good stuff. All right, back to the presentation. The big conundrum is most active content creators, so the people who are putting out content. You remember the 1% that I mentioned at the beginning of the slides? They are creating content. We are creating content in order to sell our products or services to an audience that's different to ours. Most likely, you want to sell to someone else that is not your persona. Again, if you're an HR professional, you might want to stay in that bubble. However, if you work in technology sales, you don't want to sell to another salesperson in technology. You want to sell potentially to an HR person who is in need of an HR software, but you are in the tech sales bubble. How do you then get into this bubble? And this is basically what is really frustrating, because as I said, like most people on LinkedIn who do put out content, they have no interest in being in a persona-based bubble. And therefore, my prediction is that your impressions have dropped because your audience changed. This big change of you now being a bubble, in my eyes, is the biggest driver as to why your impressions have dropped. Probably is a bit of a combination of other bits and pieces too, in terms of like, and we go into like some of the myths, and I'm going to say which ones I think could have had an influence. But I think the biggest one that is really the reason is because the whole algorithm is now persona-based. All right. What you need to keep in mind before we are getting all very upset about LinkedIn. Number one is 85% roughly of LinkedIn users are corporate professionals who want to learn from their peers. So again, like let's say the HR professional, they are very happy to learn from other HR professionals. They have no interest in understanding what a tech salesperson, a lawyer, a dentist, what they're doing. They're very happy in their bubble. So that means the new algorithm actually serves the majority of the users, which obviously LinkedIn's goal is to make money, and therefore they need to make it better for the majority of the users. The second aspect is that the younger generation, they will soon be part of the workforce. I mean, Gen Z very much is already, and Gen Alpha is coming up now. They grew up with social media, digital, and they consume content differently. They expect high quality content and highly personalized. So they're basically, LinkedIn is future-proofing itself by embracing a more personalized feed. All right. I hope you appreciate that I did the effort of finding Christmas-themed gifts. All right, let's go into myths. The first one is that your impressions could have dropped because LinkedIn tries to sell boosts. So you might have seen that now, which happened roughly at around the same time, that you can boost your own content, or you can boost your content through a company. So it's like a thought leadership ad. It could have been the reason that LinkedIn proactively lowered everyone's impressions just so that they can sell their advertisement. That would be very cheeky. That would diminish a lot of trust. And I'm not sure if that is something they truly would do. Could be. However, I tried out the boost and it performed terribly. So if that really was the reason, they would make sure that boosts perform incredibly well. Just to share, if anyone is interested, I picked this post from me and I put £100, so around $130 against it for around 6 days. I made sure that I picked a post that I knew is performing well. That one already had a lot of impressions. It was flying, it was reposted, etc. So I knew the content is good. Because if you boost content that is already shit to start with, you're just showing your shit to more people and paying money for it. So you need to make sure that if you're boosting your content, that it actually is really valuable content. However, when we look into the analytics, you see my overall impressions is 250,000 for this post. And from the ad, I only got 26,000 impressions, which you think like 26,000 impressions is a very decent amount. Normally my posts get around like maybe 10,000 impressions. I have a few more with like 20, 30, 40, 50, but also sometimes I have posts that get maybe like 3,000 impressions or 5,000. So 26,000 impressions sounds good. However, when you look at the reactions, I got 6 likes for $135. I know likes, I mean, it's a vanity metric, but just to show you, like it didn't show my content, even though you can like personalize it and say who you want it to display it to. But those people that saw it, those additional like 26,000, only 6 people liked it. So that was an absolute waste of money for me. I might try it again, and I'm very interested to hear if anyone else had like a bad or a good experience, but so far I didn't. The next myth is video is being prioritized. So I saw this as well, that some people were saying, oh, video is being pushed by LinkedIn so much, that's why all of our posts are being throttled. But if that was true, then that would mean that if we post videos, they would perform incredibly well. It isn't. It isn't. To give you some background on video, also looking at the time, I think I need to go through my slides a little bit quicker. LinkedIn is pushing video so much because, again, the younger generation, they expect short-form video. They expect this is the way how they consume content. And also when we look at B2B companies, we saw in latest research that they say video, they're going to embrace it immensely because they can show real people and real emotions, and therefore it performs best for them. So for LinkedIn to stay competitive as a marketing channel for the users, but also for companies, they need to embrace video. However, video is flopping. There was a separate video feed on the app. It has been taken off in the rest of the world. I think in the US it's still available because it was a low adoption. And also the way how it was set up is the LinkedIn editorial team they manually decided which video should go into the video feed. One insane bias, because it's humans making those decisions. Also, I know AI is biased, everything is biased, but it's just so unsustainable having a human sitting there deciding, yep, the video goes in, this one doesn't, this goes in, etc. It's not scalable. Furthermore, we are not going onto LinkedIn, and I mentioned this earlier, we're not going onto LinkedIn to switch off our mind and scroll videos. We want to be educated. We want to be like there. And we are just so used to reading text on LinkedIn. It's just a huge shift for us. You also don't want to be at work and scroll videos and being called by your manager watching videos. And then also a lot of the videos are just not entertaining enough. As I said, like I love TikTok, and the content on TikTok is like really entertaining and also a lot of education. But the videos I see on LinkedIn, they're just really poor. They're not attention grabbing enough. The hook is poor, etc. So that is another reason. Also, what a lot of you don't know is LinkedIn is not clever enough yet to understand the content of your video. And oftentimes you forget to put a proper text, like a caption, to go alongside your video. That means that when you put out your video, the algorithm does not understand what your video is about and who it should send your video to. And lastly, the user design is terrible. You might have seen when you're on a laptop or computer, the text is on the top of the video. When you're on your phone, it's like on the bottom and it's hidden. And when you click on it, it goes over the video. It's terrible. When you are on your phone, however, and you have a video that is filmed in landscape, the caption goes on top again. So very confusing. And what LinkedIn is doing is, they are working on a new LLM to understand the context of the video itself. When I spoke to the video team, it was around like 2 months ago, I asked them, what's the latest? And they were saying it's not ready yet. So they're saying they're experimenting a lot. So it sounds like it's not going to happen anytime soon. So in the meantime, in terms of video, treat it as a bottom funnel. We go into different types of content and what a bottom funnel post is later on, but basically see it as something that you build trust and credibility with your audience rather than expecting it to go like absolutely viral and get like lots of followers, etc. So use it to show people how you talk, how you speak, but don't expect it to fly unless you are in the US and you are being selected by the editorial team to be featured in the video feed. Then you can get insane amount of impressions. However, I also did hear from people that actually it doesn't really result in leads, in DMs, or even in just like likes and comments. And I think that's because the user interface is so bad. So you might have a lot of impressions, but it doesn't really actually materialize in anything meaningful. Bear with me 1 second. I'm just checking if the technology is still working as it's supposed to. All right. I think we're all good. Again, it's just so weird that I'm just talking to myself and I can't see faces or comments. Anyhow, I go back into the slides and I just get used to this. All right. The next myth is engagement pods got nuked. Again, I saw this on LinkedIn. Someone was saying it's because LinkedIn is tackling engagement pods and that's why everyone's impressions dropped, which is just so silly. I wanted to say stupid. I should say stupid because that would mean that we were all in an engagement pod and that doesn't make sense. However, LinkedIn is actively tackling engagement pods. So there was this video being put out again from the product team at LinkedIn, which is all around that they are going to tackle engagement pods. For those people that don't know, an engagement pod is basically an organized group of people. Let's say they're on WhatsApp or in different groups. You put out a post on LinkedIn, you copy the URL, put it into the chat, and then everyone in that group jumps onto it, likes us, and engages, etc. This is what I mentioned earlier in terms of that the old algorithm was able to be gamed and influenced a lot. That's something the new algorithm, it doesn't work. Again, you would need, in theory, if I take the example again, you are in tech sales and you sell to HR professionals, you would need to have an engagement pod with just HR professionals and you're the only tech sales person in it. Then it would work out, but that's not a real life scenario. So engagement pods just doesn't make any sense. And also LinkedIn is like honing down on this so much so that even I received a message last night, and I know a lot of people received the same message at the same time, so they must have sent out a big like boost. And they were basically saying that they noticed some activity on my account that appears to be automated or inauthentic. I don't have any automation tools on my LinkedIn whatsoever. I'm so anxious around these because they're the easiest way to get banned. Everyone who knows me, I always say, do not use any third-party tools unless they're an official LinkedIn partner. And then I'm not in part of an engagement pod. Of course, I talk to the same people. I have my own community. When those people pop up on my feed, I give them my love and my support. Also, I love to engage with bigger accounts, Stephen Bartlett, Alex Hormozi, etc. You might have seen my memes. Yes, I comment under some of the same people's posts. But I think it's a little bit unfair, LinkedIn, to say that it's inauthentic. Anyhow, just saying they take it incredibly seriously. Next one, there is simply more content due to AI. Again, there is an insane amount of content now on the feed, and we go on to this later, but that wouldn't be the reason why we all saw a drop overnight. This would have been a gradual drop in impressions and not in July, August. I think it was actually July when it happened. I remember that day. I put out a post and it was a fucking good post and it did nothing. And that's always like the indication. When you post every day on LinkedIn and something with your post is not happening, you know LinkedIn is changing the algorithm. It happened 3 times since I started posting, so since February. But the biggest change was, I think it was in July. Anyhow, that is not the reason. However, what they have recently introduced is the content credentials, like watermark, however you want to call it. So whenever you have an AI-generated image, LinkedIn detects it, and then it has this sign. I have not seen that it would prohibit your impressions. If you use an AI image, I've seen so many posts that went viral with an AI-generated image that had the content credentials sign on it. I think it has no impact. I just wanted to highlight it, let you know that this is now being rolled out. I think it's in beta mode, but a lot of people already see this. LinkedIn is not able to detect, by the way, if your text is written by AI. How would it be? It cannot detect it unless obviously you're connected to like a third-party tool, etc. But if you write something in ChatGPT and you copy it across, LinkedIn would not be able to detect it. Talking about the SSI score, again, I saw some people saying that the SSI score is the reason why we all saw a drop in engagement. There has been no changes to the SSI score. The SSI score has nothing to do with the algorithm. I go into this in a second, but this is not the reason why we saw a drop in impressions. There have been no changes being made. The SSI score is such a silly thing that it's almost not worthwhile talking about it. But then also at the same time, whenever I do bring it up, lots of people, like in the comments or in my community, it's like a big thing and a big discussion. So I know a lot of people are really keen to learn more about it. Basically, the SSI score is like, it's a social selling index, but it's just a bit of like a tick box exercise, a checklist for how well you're doing in social selling. So it's like a ranking from 0 to 100 that indicates how well you're using LinkedIn's features that help you to be a better salesperson. So it's like 4 pillars. They give you up to 25 points. Establish a professional brand, find the right people, engage with insights, build relationships. We'll get onto this in a second. And as I said, it does not influence the algorithm. If you have a low SSI score, it has no impact on the algorithm. What you might confuse this with is LinkedIn has like kind of a trust score. This is not visible to the public or to you. You have no idea what your score is. This is internally at LinkedIn where they can see if there are any flags on your account. So this could be you have been reported, or you have a tool, or you're in an engagement pod, or you're not verified, all of those different things. This could lead to a shadow ban. This could lead to a ban of your profile, but the SSI score has nothing to do with that. If you want to see your SSI score, don't go onto it now because I want you to stay on this webinar. But if you want to go onto it later, it's linkedin.com/sales/SSI. You can see your own SSI score. But again, it has no bearings whatsoever. Basically looks into the areas of how well is your profile set up. Do you use the search functionality on LinkedIn? Do you create content on LinkedIn? And do you connect with people? Those are the 4 areas. What is interesting, however, by the way, this is my SSI score, if anyone is interested. I don't give a shit. I really could not care less about this SSI score. But what is interesting is on the bottom here, it says sales professionals in the marketing services industry have an average SSI score of 30. So I was wondering, how does LinkedIn know that I'm in the marketing services industry? So it shows that LinkedIn, and I mean, to be fair, I already knew that, but it shows you that LinkedIn is very much looking at your current company. My current company is the Hype Department, my company, and it is set up under marketing services. So again, think about if you have your own business, you are in tech sales, let's say you're working for a software company, but you sell to HR professionals. Obviously, if you work for a multi-billion-dollar business, it's not that easy. But if you have a smaller company and you can decide what to put onto your LinkedIn profile, think about selecting HR services as your industry, because then you're in the HR bubble and not in the technology bubble. They put a lot of emphasis onto this one, alongside some other bits in your profile, and we go into this later. But yeah, I wanted to highlight this at this point, and I hope I'm not confusing you by jumping around in my head. Next myth is LinkedIn is silencing women. Again, this is something that I've spoken about in the last webinar, and I want to quickly explain this again for those who weren't able to join, which I know were a lot of people. For those who aren't aware, there was a huge gender swap experiment. We saw a lot of news around women changing their gender and then seeing a huge increase in their impressions. However, there are a few things that we need to critically think about. LinkedIn has put out an official statement, so this was 2 weeks ago, on the 20th of November, saying that our algorithm and AI systems do not use demographic information. And I mentioned that earlier as well. So LinkedIn is also by law not allowed to influence the LLMs based on any sort of demographic information. However, we don't want to discredit that some women have seen an increase. So we try to understand where it comes from. But first of all, LinkedIn's vision is to create economic opportunity for every member of the global workforce. 43% of users are women. If LinkedIn were to proactively, which we know they don't, they would impact 430 million, if not more, voices on the feed. It does not make any commercial sense for LinkedIn to proactively do that. And I'm saying this because a lot of people have said that it's LinkedIn doing so on purpose to sell more of their products because there are more men in decision-making roles, etc. And that's why. But I just want to say this cannot be the case. Then, roughly around the same time, recently, our analytics changed. We now have the default view in cumulative stats. So meaning every day it's being added on. So of course the graph is going up. It's not a daily. So again, I saw a lot of women showing up in my feed saying they saw an increase, and then the data was literally just a cumulative graph. And I thought, this is so, it does not make sense. And then silent data in the sense of there are so many women that have changed their gender and saw no impact. And they, of course, they are not shouting from the rooftops about it. They have their jobs to do. They have other things to worry about. They are not publicly putting out a post saying, hey, folks, listen up. I changed my gender and nothing happened. Of course, it's only those women that saw a change that like are very, very loud about this. And I think this was just like a gigantic hype. Again, having said this, I don't want to discredit some women that did see an impact. And I wonder whether that could be, on the one hand, because of the quality of the content, meaning when subconsciously, when you changed your gender and the next post you've been putting out, could you potentially have put more emphasis in the sense of creating better content because you were more aware of the content you're putting out and you were more aware of how the content could perform? That could be one reason why it could have performed better. Also, I know some women changed their tone of voice, meaning they just sounded more male. And this is fundamentally, we know LLMs and AI are biased. So we do know that this could have had an impact. So in terms of what we should do as a woman, don't change your gender or write differently. Because if we write like a man, we only feed the bias. We're not changing the bias by doing this. Also changing the gender messes with the whole LinkedIn data. And again, we're just giving in. We're giving up and giving in. Also, don't join any female engagement pods. There was a huge viral post around a female engagement pod to be launched in December. I'm not sure if it's going ahead, where women supporting women, etc. We know LinkedIn is very much against it. It's against the terms and conditions. They're very rigorous around it. And for your impressions, it doesn't make any sense. So don't do that. We should lobby for smarter AI regulations. I signed a petition that is for more transparency, fair external audits, risk assessments. And what we really can do, actionable right now, focus on just creating high quality content for your specific audience. And I show you how to do that. Now, what a nice segue. Bear with me. I'm just quickly checking if you're all still there, if you're listening, if you're following. Yes, I can see you're still in the comments. Nice one. Oh, it's such a shame that I can't see the comments when I'm presenting the slides. I want to see what you're saying, and I would love to see your faces as well. Oh, well. Oh, well. All right. Let's get back into it. How do you get your content seen by the right people? 3 steps: profile, content, and engagement. Those are the 3 key areas that we're going into with the changes that you should make. Maybe you already know them, maybe you don't. I hope I will be able to give you some really good nuggets here. In terms of your profile, raise your hands in the comments. And I can't see the comments, but like make yourself known in the comments, and I will swap over in a second, if you have seen any of these faces before. All right, let me see. Let's go into the comments if I can see anyone. Also, I think there's a time delay. So you're probably responding to my question in about a minute's time. Oh, I can't see any comments. Well, I can see comments, but they're irrelevant because I think I'm ahead. I'm in the future. Anyhow, I just assume that you have seen any of those faces before. I hope so, because there's some really big names on here. Those are all people that have built hugely successful businesses off the back of visibility. There are so many predictions, data, statistics, research out there that predict that the next $1 billion business will be built on visibility first and product later, or service later. Visibility is so important in today's day and age. As I said earlier, trust is the #1 factor in people's buying decisions, and you build trust by showing your face. And this is also why I want to show you how much of an increase you get in your impressions when you post on your personal page versus your company page. So 500% greater engagement. So this is on average, and this is actually LinkedIn data for content share from your personal profile. I did a workshop with Samsung. Samsung's chief design officer is Mauro. He has around 100,000 LinkedIn followers. And then Samsung, the company page, has 5 million LinkedIn followers. So just again, like 100,000 followers versus 5 million followers. When Samsung posts on LinkedIn, they got on average 150 likes. Oh, I can't see the impressions, but so let's just base it off the likes. And Mauro, when he posts, he gets around 600 likes on average. In Samsung's example, that's 170% higher engagement per follower. That just shows firsthand how much of an impact it has when you actually show up as your true self, the behind the scenes, the human, the vulnerability, instead of just a faceless company. So this is why we now go into how to set up your profile, your personal profile. This part of your profile, I always like to say, is LinkedIn prime real estate. Your banner is free advertisement space. It's a billboard. You have to use it. If you don't grab someone's attention within the first few seconds on this part of your profile, they will not scroll on. This is so important that you absolutely nail this. So with your banner, put in a headline, a sub-headline, say who you help, how you help them to achieve what. Have a call to action. What should they do? And also add in some logos for credibility. You can add in a second image of yourself. This is especially if you're a coach or you're doing a business where it's very much you in the center of it, it just helps with the brand recognition. If you want to land more speaking gigs, put yourself with a microphone onto your second picture, because it's self-explanatory. I don't need to write down speaker. You can see that I'm a speaker. So yeah, this just helps again with like the personal aspect. And then your headline. Think about it. Your headline is always shown when you post, when you DM someone, when you connect with someone, when you comment. I get so many DMs of people saying, hey, I saw your comment under Alex Hormozi's post and your headline intrigued me. And that's what we want. So make sure your headline is curiosity inducing, but it's also very clear what it is that you do. Your profile picture. Mine is not great. You should have one where you actually are looking into the camera, as zoomed in as possible, and ideally a bright background, because you know they're getting so tiny on the feed, on the right-hand side, in the comments, etc. The more bright it is, the more it will stand out and attract eyeballs. And then lastly, verification. Very important. LinkedIn is the most trusted social media platform, and LinkedIn very much wants to be and stays the most trusted social media platform. Again, VP of Product at LinkedIn, Oscar, just yesterday announced that they have now 100 million members verified. They put a lot of emphasis onto this. It's a little bit of a rumor. We don't know if it's true, but if you're not verified, it could be that you're somewhat shadow banned. We don't know for sure. I don't want to spread any gossip, but just make sure that you verify yourself, because then at least you know you're on the safe side. Because LinkedIn just wants to make sure there are no bots, AI profiles, double profiles, fake profiles, all of this out there. So if you put out a lot of content and you're not verified, it might be that LinkedIn is saying, we don't trust you quite yet. So when I talked about the trust score earlier, if you're not verified, you might have a flag on your account. Your about section, keep it short, keep it in the first person with lots of white space, easy to read. But what we need to focus on with the new algorithm is your skills and keywords. So my audience nowadays, I focus more on the corporate side. So I have digital marketing, social media teams, sales leaders, senior executives. This is all my ideal audience now. In terms of top skills, I have put in employer branding, digital marketing, social media marketing. When I made those changes with my top skills, you can select 5. I've seen so many more connection requests coming from the right people. So I think this has a huge impact. So again, if you are in tech sales, don't put your top 5 skills just all about technology, sales, and software and all of this. Try to also weave in HR. We don't want to completely mislead it and just put in HR because you are a salesperson and you are in tech, but make sure you also mention HR. Of course, it's a little bit tricky. Of course, if you want to go all in, you can do it all with HR, but we don't want to completely fiddle with everything. I hope this makes sense. Right, in terms of like the flow of your about section, the best way is to open up with a bit of like a sentence that is geared towards your ideal customer, and then you go into yourself and like a little bit around the story of where you are right now and what your background is, and then what is it that you're offering. Ideally, you have a short testimonial in there as well, and then a call to action in terms of reach out, shoot me a DM, etc. Featured section. A lot of people actually either don't have it set up or they use it incorrectly. Oh my God, we are so short on time. I will go through this and the Q&A might be a little bit shorter, but I do hope that by going through all of those slides, a lot of the questions you might have will be answered. If not, my DMs are always open. If I'm not answering your question, if you don't have time, shoot me a DM. In the featured section, make sure that you're not just attaching one of your posts. It is like your shop front window. You want to make sure that people are finding a way to get in touch with you, book your services or subscribe to your newsletter, etc. So think about your services, put in your website, as I said, your newsletter, one-on-one booking link, if that's the action you want them to take. Maybe even a part of your website where you have your testimonials, like what do people say about me, speaking gigs, PR mentions, all of these things. Put this into your featured section. By the way, on the phone, when someone scrolls on your phone, they can only see the first link. On your desktop, they can see 3. So make sure you're not having too many in there because they will not be seen anyway. With your experience section, again, short and concise, think about your skills, again, targeted towards your ICPs, and make sure you add media. So this could be the link to your website, to your one-on-one booking link, etc. If someone is already scrolling that far down onto your profile, we want to make sure that you can capture them. And this is what I said earlier, with your own company or the company you work for, make sure it is ICP focused. Now we get into content. This is what we call the exposure effect. Psychologically, the more often we see or hear about someone, the more positively we tend to respond to them. So whenever we are scared of putting ourselves out there too much and annoy other people, no, the more positively they will think about us. So please put out content. It will be beneficial for you. Different types of content. This is what I said earlier. You need to think about it as a marketing funnel, top, middle, bottom. Top funnel content is broader content. It's the type of content that can be reshared. People want to repost it. The reason why people would repost content is because it makes them feel good, or it makes other people feel good, or smart, or intelligent. So if I put out a post saying, hey, I got married, again, I didn't, but if I got married, who would repost that? Nobody cares. So this is kind of top funnel content to get like visibility onto you. When you're actively growing your account, I would focus on 70% of your content to be more top funnel content, because the beauty with LinkedIn is if you have a post that goes viral, people click on your profile and then your profile explains everything that you do. Whereas on other media, social media platforms, if you have a viral post, you might attract a lot of random people that are following you because they don't really understand what it is that you do. But with your profile, you can give a very clear example. Middle funnel content, this is where you build that credibility and trust with the audience that is already following you. So this is customer success stories. How are you helping clients? Or also a little bit more niche content. So for me, for example, I talk about LinkedIn. When I do a top funnel post, I would talk about marketing. But if I talk about how to write good LinkedIn hooks, that would be very much a middle funnel post. I would keep it at around 25% of your content for middle funnel posts. And bottom funnel posts are those salesy one where you say like, go and join this webinar. Thank you for joining my webinar. You know what I mean? Those are like the post I put out today was very much a bottom funnel post where I said, today, this is the webinar. This is what we're going for. Sign up. Keep it to a bare minimum because you don't want to be too salesy. And personal updates is also bottom funnel. When you say like, hey, I won this award. Again, nobody gives a shit if they don't already know you or already trust and like you. What we see most of the time is that newbies on the platform, they post a lot of personal updates. Not the way to go. The anatomy of a post. How do you actually craft a good post? So we just talked about like your content strategy. Now we go into the nitty-gritty. Your post has 3 elements: your hook, the meat, and the end. Your hook is the very first bit of your post. And also I'd like to think the asset that goes with it, whether it's an infographic, a carousel, or a personal image. This is where it grabs people's attention. I have a bit of a checklist. Don't get too obsessed with it, but keep the language easy to read, Hemingway style. Stay under 12 words because this is where kind of the cutoff is. Trigger emotions in the sense of make it bold, like make it like attention grabbing. Tell a personal story. I know this is all getting very, very tricky trying to tick all the boxes, but what we've seen now, posts with a, where you build credibility instantaneously, that really helps. So for example, I've put in, I'm ex-LinkedIn, or when I posted about my sister, I said, my sister, like it is already like storytelling versus what we saw in the past on LinkedIn a lot, which was 10 tips to do leadership, something like this. That doesn't work as well anymore. And I go into this in a second. Numbers are great as like a pattern, like interrupter, and always ask yourself, would I stop scrolling? Like, is this something where I would actually like be induced with curiosity? So for example, when you're posting infographics or carousels, the text on those on the first slide is as important as your hook, because they will most likely, people will read this first before the hook. Right, the meat of your post, this is like the core essence. We need to think about the evolution of LinkedIn content. Before the year 2022, kind of, is the anything goes era. The feed was fairly empty. Whatever you put out got a lot of impressions. This is where we saw a lot of the big creators come up. I know I'm getting a lot of backlash for this. There are a lot of big creators that have like 100 or 200,000 followers. They go during that time. When they now put out content, and I look at the content, and the content is really poor, it doesn't perform. Of course it doesn't perform, because with the new algorithm, you have to put out really good content. Also, I want to say it and nuance this. There are a lot of amazing big creators out there that work really hard to grow their audience, and they put out amazing content. I'm not talking about you, just to make this clear. The next era is 2022 to 2025, kind of, which was like the education mania era. This is where we saw like the surge in cheat sheets, infographics, carousels. This is where we saw a lot of the Chris Donnellys, Justin Welch's, Eric Partaker, etc. grow. However, now with AI, it's so easy to create the cheat sheets and the carousels, and also the text and the education and everything around it. So this is why, and this is I say the brain meets vibes era, which is we still need an insane amount of value, but also storytelling and emotion, and we want to be entertained. So we need to find a middle ground between education and entertainment. As I said, value, story, personality. This is because in the world of AI we are in, how do you normally speak? How do you speak to someone over WhatsApp, over dinner? Do you swear? I like to swear. Maybe you do too. Swear on LinkedIn. Make sure you're not getting blocked. So put an asterisk somewhere in, and you know what I mean. Easy to read, Hemingway style, no business jargon, easy words. There are tools out there where you can put in your post. They're free to use, no sign up. Drop me a DM if you want to know which one it is. It's like Hemingway something. It scans your post and it tells you how to make the words simpler and easier, make the sentences short and snappy, easy to read, a lot of white space. Address your ICPs, make it very clear who you're talking to. Talk about one subject at a time, about one person. And trigger emotions. I like to stay on the happy side of emotions. I do have a rant every now and then, but make people feel something and don't keep it too bland. The end of a post, bit of an inspirational kind of wrap up, then trigger comments, because it is still part of the algorithm when we see that there is a lot of engagement in the comments back and forth. Therefore, you want to animate people. And also it's a great way to understand and learn from your audience, to see what they need, what they want to see next, if they have any questions, anything, or if they say something against what you were saying. And lastly, one call to action. Don't make too many, because otherwise people will not take any action. So if you're saying, follow me, repost, save, etc., they will not do anything. So pick one. And this is it. If you want to see a good post, I know this sounds so big-headed. These posts, and this is all recorded, you can all scroll back and rewatch this. But if you go to my profile and you click on images, you see this overview. Those posts that I've highlighted, those were posts that performed really well for me. And I know why they perform well, because they have an insane amount of value. They're good stories and they're very emotional. I'm proud of those posts. It took me a long time to put together, and I think you can learn from them. In my community, we do have a WhatsApp group with outliers, where I always pop in a LinkedIn post that I come across that outperform for someone's audience size. And I try to analyze why they have performed well, so we can all learn from each other and get better, because we all deserve to see good content in the feed. Right, engagement. So this is now the last part as well. So I think we need another maybe 5 to 10 minutes, and then we go into the Q&A. I hope you're all still here, by the way. Let me have a quick look. I hope I'm not boring you to death. No, there's still comments going. That is really nice. At least there are a few people. I actually have no idea how many people are on here. Might be a good thing. All right, back to the slides. Engagement. I'm just laughing at my own memes. They're so bad. LinkedIn's own research is saying that buyers are 5 times more likely to engage with someone who they recognize. So if you want to slip into someone's DMs, but you have engaged with their content, the weeks leading up to it, they are way more likely to accept your connection request, because they have seen your face beforehand. So this is all about commenting, DMing, etc. I have the 20-20-20 method that I came up with ages ago when I was growing my own like 10K follower growth. By the way, 10K is like a vanity metric. We can like put this aside. Happy to have a chat about this, but it was just a goal, something tangible that I wanted to work towards too. It's basically 1 hour on LinkedIn whenever you post. By the way, you don't need to post every day. I don't post every day. I rather have you post once or twice a week with a really good post than every day with a shit post. Of course, if you post 7 times a week, you have 7 chances of going viral, but also it might just really burn you out. My job is literally LinkedIn. Like, this is my business. I'm a LinkedIn creator. So of course I try to post every day. But if you have your own business to run, different businesses that are not LinkedIn, don't burn yourself out. I have not come across anything where LinkedIn is punishing you for not posting regularly, like every day. Put out content when you feel good about what you have put together and you're proud of it. That makes it all so much more sustainable. So 1 hour on LinkedIn, whenever you do post, ideally, obviously, the more time you spend on LinkedIn, the more you get out of it. When I was growing to 10,000 followers, I was on LinkedIn around like 3 or 4 hours a day, which is absolutely nuts. But also I was working for LinkedIn at that time. So it wasn't weird. I'm just saying this. If someone says like, I want to grow my following and I'm spending 20 minutes on LinkedIn a day, then I'm sorry, this is probably not working. Because in my eyes, content and engagement has a 50-50 weight. So you can put out the most amazing content, but if you're not doing engagement, it will not work. If you only do engagement and no content, you actually, I think, have even a better chance. But put a 50-50 emphasis on both. So yeah, and the more you put in, the more you get out, as I said. But to make this all sustainable, that's why I said 1 hour on LinkedIn whenever you post, because it's easy to block out in your calendar when you say like, actually, I want to post 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Let's say you just put a 1 hour block for LinkedIn in your calendar. And it's basically divided into 20 comments, 20 connections, and 20 DMs. With comments, so it should take you about like 20 minutes, might take you longer, might be quicker. It is very beautiful to do this in Sales Navigator. I don't want to sell Sales Navigator to you. I don't get any commission. I wish I would. As a LinkedIn ex-employee, you get a premium license for free for the rest of your life. But if you want to upgrade to Sales Navigator, you have to cancel your premium. You have to pay for Sales Navigator privately, and you can never go back to your free premium. And I made the decision to pay for Sales Navigator privately because I wholeheartedly believe in it. Because on Sales Navigator, you have a separate home feed. You can set up lead lists with your ideal customers, for example, and then you can literally just select in Sales Navigator your ideal customers, which then means if we go back to like the whole algorithm conversation from the beginning, you are really priming your LinkedIn. Again, you're a tech salesperson targeting HR professionals. You can set up your Sales Navigator just for HR professionals, and all your engagement is just HR professionals. So you will definitely, if then your profile is set up for HR professionals, you will be in the HR professionals bubble. You want to have your ideal customers that you comment under, but also some bigger creators, because they are the ones that hopefully have your ideal customers in their audience, and also industry peers who are a little bit bigger, again, who have your ideal customers in their audience. When I post under like a Alex Hormozi or Gary Vee post, some of my comments can get up to like 5, 10, even like 30,000 impressions, which is crazy. So you can have so much impact with commenting in terms of visibility, growing your audience, but also, as I said, just like learning about your customers and your followers. Do value add comments, not just emojis. I don't actually need to explain this to you. I think you all know this. Do value add, etc. I always comment with a lot of value when I know the people. When I do comment under a Stephen Bartlett post, I might keep it a little bit more light because I'm very busy, but try to always, especially if you post a comment under an ideal customer's post, value add, because this is how you instantaneously show your credibility and that you're a subject matter expert. Then 20 connection requests. With a premium or Sales Navigator license, you can send 150 connection requests per week. We don't want to flag any automation police, LinkedIn, whatever. So we stagger it, ideally with 20 connection requests per day. Again, send them to your ideal customers, send them to bigger creators or industry peers, or also to people that comment under bigger creators' posts, who are your ideal customers, because they don't shy away from putting out content. So you know your ideal audience. If they are, let's say, I don't know, supply chain executives, they might not be necessarily as active on LinkedIn as like a social media marketing manager. So if you find people who are actually in supply chain and do comment under other people's posts, they are great to connect with, because they will most likely also be happy to comment under your posts. And I always would suggest to include a message and an open-ended question. I see this now whenever I get loads of connection requests. I'm very rigorous with who I can accept, because you can only have 30,000 connection requests. But also I will really read through what is the message. And if the message is not relevant, goodbye. And if it's relevant, I'm like, yeah, nice one. So always include an open-ended question. This is, for example, something that I've sent to someone called Sean, saying, I saw your comment under Christinelli's post, the man is a genius, thought I shoot my shot, etc. Didn't include a question here. But you see what I mean? This is like, try to make it as personal as possible, telling them why you're connecting with them, how you've seen their profile. When it comes to DMs, I keep this super short, one, because of time, but also secondly, because it's very different depending on what you're selling. If you're selling to organizations, if you're selling to customers, if you have a high ticket item, if you have a low ticket item, very, very different in the context of just wanting to grow your audience. Because if you're active with people in the DMs, the algorithm will show your content to the people you've most recently been in touch with, alongside like all the other things that we discussed. But that means if you're active in the DMs, that also means your content will be displayed to more and more people, and you get to know your customers. So in the DMs, what I mean is like, always be curious, ask questions. Don't talk, ask questions. Learn about the other person, be genuinely curious. Don't ever use any automations, it will get you banned straight away. Never pitch directly, like genuinely just have a conversation. So this is, for example, oh, sorry that I didn't, whoops. But yeah, don't pitch in the DMs, genuinely ask like, how are people doing, how they're feeling, etc. What I always like to say to people, if they're like smaller businesses, founders, etc., coaches, etc., is you can always say like in the DMs, when someone says like, oh, and how was your Sunday? And you could say like, oh, I just came off a coaching call with a client. I'm so stoked for her. She finally landed that role that we were working on together. But now it's time for me to put up my feet and enjoy, I don't know, Stranger Things. Great show. So this makes you humble and human, but you also indirectly tell the person what it is that you do without being too salesy. You show them that you have clients. It's a customer success story. If that other person has a need for like a career coach or whatever it is that you're doing, they will ask more questions. If not, they now know what it is that you do, and they continuously see your content. And when they have a need for your services, they hopefully will think of you first. Oh my God, this is a wrap. So before you drop off, by the way, as I said, I promise you, no sales. So I'm not saying before you drop off, I have an offer for you. Don't worry, there's no sales. I'm going to now pick the person who has won a one-on-one strategy session with me. The people that did repost my post from today, thank you so much for doing that. And whilst I pull this up, please put your question into the comments, because now I will stop sharing my screen after I've picked a name and go through the comments. When you put your question in the comment, could you please do me a favor and put like a big capital Q or Q&A or question or something before your question, so I can actually see that it is a question, because I'm a one-woman show, so I try to organize this all. So yeah, thank you for still bearing with me. We have another 15 minutes, also depending on how many people are on this call. I'm happy to stay longer. Put your questions in the comments whilst I'm selecting the person that has won the one-on-one session with me. Let me see. Yes. All right, I've put in the people that reposted my post. I love this wheel of names. It's so fun. And it is Daniel. Daniel, I don't know. You could be German, you could be American, you could be a different nationality, I don't know. But Daniel, I will shoot you a DM. Actually, let me take a screenshot because otherwise I forget. And I will get in touch and we will jump on a call and I will do a LinkedIn deep dive session with you. Thank you. All right. So now I am going to remove this and here I am. Okay. God, this is exciting. I can see comments now. All right. I am in the comments. Let me scroll back. Oh, I love that a lot of you are following what I asked you to do with the QA or question. Thank you, guys. Okay. Let's see, I'm just scrolling up to the top. Oh, I have one that just says LinkedIn user. I can't see, I think there is something like if I'm not connected with, no, I'm not sure. I don't know, but it just says LinkedIn user. So I'm really sorry that I cannot say who you are. Actually, so you should now see the question on the screen. I'm not sure if that actually works. I tried to see on my second screen, but again, it's like a 5-minute delay or so. So I have no idea. Oh, well. So LinkedIn user, I'm sorry that I can't see your name, but your question is there any point in tagging? So tagging is tricky. Apparently, again, nobody knows for certain, but if you tag someone in a post and they do not engage with your post, that could lower your impressions because LinkedIn could think potentially that you are just spamming people and that's why you're not tagging. Some say never ever like tag a big persona like Stephen Bartlett, let's say, or Alex Hormozi. However, I have seen posts go viral with those big creators tagged and they have not engaged with that post. So I wouldn't worry too much about it, but I think in general, don't tag too many people because they could come across as spammy. If you want to be on the safe side, maybe just talk about Stephen Bartlett, but not tag him. Yeah, I hope this makes sense. And I hope this is what you were asking for. All right, let's go. Well, I just see a lot of the comments where you're saying, wonderful presentation, great session. Thank you, guys. It makes me so happy. Joy was saying, why aren't you selling? You're obligated to sell. You have helped me. You have helped my clients. I just still feel so guilty about this whole situation that happened with that external partner, who we, I think, all know who it was, that I just want to make sure that people know I'm here to make up for this. This is a rerun of the session. I don't want to, I mean, obviously I have services to sell. If you want any of my services, please slip into my DMs. I'm more than happy to help you with your LinkedIn. And I tell you all about my offers. All right. So next question from Michael. Are hashtags necessary on LinkedIn? No. LinkedIn is clever enough to understand the text of your post. The only, actually, it also is not relevant anymore, but they say, for example, if you go to a conference and it's like, I don't know, Changemakers Conference London 2026, 2025, whatever, then it might make sense to use that hashtag. However, if you just use the words without the hashtag, LinkedIn is also already clever enough to understand it. So actually, it doesn't really matter. LinkedIn has put this out publicly as well, saying hashtags don't really do anything anymore. So don't worry. Okay, next one. Mitra, I like your question marks. They did grab my attention, so thank you. Does time of the day for posting matter? Yes and no. Actually, no, more yes than no. I would suggest that you stick to the same time you're posting, because your audience, when you start growing, you will have more and more people that kind of expect your post. I'm now at the point when I post too early, people are in the comments saying, you're too early. Or if I'm posting at like 1 p.m., like yesterday, it's so funny. I put out a post that was scheduled. That was not supposed to go live. There was no image attached to it. It was in a kind of like raw state, and it went out randomly at like 1:37 p.m. and people like pinged me saying like, what is this post? And to be fair, I left the post there. If you want to have a look, go onto my profile. I'm not very proud of it. It didn't perform well. But anyhow, so stick to the same time. But what is really important is post when your audience is most likely on the platform and awake and engaged, meaning check into your analytics, your followers, where they're predominantly based. If they're in the UK, post like between 8 a.m. and like 11 or maybe even 1 p.m. That can also be fine, UK time, but don't post at like midnight. Whilst you might reach people in other parts of the world, but they're not predominantly in your audience, then yeah, because still the algorithm still works in a way that it looks at engagement, not as much anymore as it did previously, but engagement still matters. Also, early engagement still matters. So the more people you have on your post right in the beginning, the better. So post when your audience is awake. Also quickly, I know you didn't ask about day of the week, but I'm just answering because I get this question all the time. Day of the week is different from person to person on what days of the week you should post. Most LinkedIn users are active Monday to Friday, with Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday slightly outperforming. This is because LinkedIn obviously has more corporates in their user base. However, if your ideal customers are senior executives, so when I used to work at Gartner, I worked with C-level executives, and I always reach them on a Friday afternoon and at the weekend, because this is when they're not in meetings. Same as with entrepreneurs, they are working, I can say this now firsthand, every day of the week. So look into your analytics when your posts are performing the best. Look into who your ideal customers are, what your majority of your audience, what they do, and then, yeah, figure it out, play around with it. But yeah, a Saturday actually for me performs really well, and for other people it might be terribly. Right. Oh, Helen is asking to tell us about your community. I'm just putting this up there because I'm not making this up. If you have been in this whole, I just wanted to say a swear word, I'm not saying it, in this whole situation that happened with the webinar, I actually sent out an email to everyone who was registered saying you can get a free month access to my community as a, look, I'm making this up to you. There are no strings attached, no card details required, although there was a little bit of a hiccup. But anyhow, you can still access the community for free for a month to see if you like it. We come together once a week for a Q&A session similar to this, but we are all on camera, we're all talking to each other, we all know each other. And then we have a Roast My Post session where I help people with crafting their content. We have a WhatsApp group. We have an Outliers channel, as I said earlier, where I show people posts that are outperforming. We have like a gold mine section with like templates and guides. We are just there to hype each other on. And I'm not saying, hey, I'm here and this is what you need to do and listen to me. I'm literally figuring this all out with you. My only promise to my community members is that I, as I said earlier, I have an insane interest in learning about LinkedIn and being always the first person to understand when something is happening. So I see it as my job, my duty to tell my community members when something is working, when something isn't working, when there is a good format that currently performs really well, when video is picking up again, for example, like those things. I want to make sure everyone is there and we are all learning together. I have Richard Moore joining. I'm not sure if you guys know him. He is amazing. He does The Art of Sell. That's his company. He's joining. He hasn't confirmed the date yet, I think, but like the first week in January for like a guest session on how to sell. So anyhow, so this is my community. You can find details normally on my profile, but I think my profile is currently all set up with the webinar. Send me a DM, and then I'm happy to give you a month for free as well. All right. Next one from Amanda. Is it true that scheduling your posts hurt them? Actually, let me see if this whole commenting thingy works. Yeah, it does work. Nice. Yes and no. So if you're scheduling from a third-party tool, that could be harmful because that could get you blocked. If you're scheduling natively on LinkedIn, it has no impact on your impressions. The only thing is oftentimes you forget that you have something scheduled. Happened to me. Or you're literally like, this is what we call like post and ghost, where you put something out, but you are doing something else with your day. If you're not really like engaging with your audience after it has come out, it might not perform that well. Also, having said this, that is not really the case anymore as much. Previously, it definitely had an impact. It always said like the first like 90 minutes or so after you posted, you should be like in the comments and like doing lots of things. It's not that important anymore. I had some posts that I scheduled on LinkedIn and I was actually out for the day and they performed really well. So schedule your content, that's absolutely fine. Just be aware that sometimes you might have a post schedule that you forgot about and just be a bit more aware. But if you schedule, do it natively on LinkedIn. All right. Linda, you can be lucky that I saw your comment, even though you said question beforehand. No, it's fine. If you go viral, what is the strategy to managing connections and who to accept? Be ruthless with who you're going to accept. As I said earlier, you can only have 30,000 connections. I know this sounds like far in the future, but you will hit that point at some point. And also, again, for the algorithm, it is very important that they understand what bubble to put you in. So make sure you only connect with the people that that are relevant to you, that are your ideal customers or good for you to have in your network. Yeah, and that's it. And to be fair, if there is someone that writes like a DM and like a message with it, and it makes sense for them why they want to connect with me, I'm happy to connect with them. But other than this, if it's a random connection, like, no. But something I just want to say about going viral, not just in terms of like the connection requests, but if you have a post go viral. So for example, I put out a post about my sister. She went to her final exams with her 4-month-old baby, my nephew, strapped around her chest. I was saying neck, around her chest. And I put out the post as in like homage to her, like how fucking cool that is, because she just stood up to herself and said like, this is me, take it or leave it. And like, anyhow, you can read that post if you want to. But basically, this post has nothing to do with LinkedIn, has nothing to do with what I do. It was literally just about my sister. It was still a lot of value in that post. It really outperformed. It had like over 2,000 likes, insane, over 200,000 impressions. It had some value around it, like what it means to be like in business and motherhood. Anyhow, what is important is on that post, I gained a lot of new followers, lots of like engagement, lots of likes. The post the next day, if I would have then posted 10 spicy hooks on LinkedIn, that would have probably performed terribly, because my new audience, and also especially the warmed up audience, they would not resonate with that. I mean, some would do because they decided to follow me, but still there might be some people following me that don't really understand that I'm mainly talking about LinkedIn. And so what I wanted to do is then, instead of just like having a drop off after that viral post, my next post was a bit of a softer one as well. That was around me not drinking alcohol anymore. So again, with a lot of data and value in there. And then like gently, I went back onto the LinkedIn bits and pieces. So yeah, just keep that in mind, that like when you have a viral post, who are all the people? Ideally, you want to have a viral post that is your ideal customer. So for example, when I was advertising this webinar, I had one viral post, which thank fucking God. But that was like my ideal customers and it went viral for them. And then my next post, they were just LinkedIn. I made sure they are just LinkedIn, and it performed really well. I hope that makes sense. Right, what is the time? Nice. I'm happy to stay a little bit longer. I just hope that when I go through those questions that the people are still on here, the ones that I'm going to answer. Quick question, actually, I should just speed up my answers. A friend is asking, how do you know if someone paid for a successful post if it went viral organically? I'm actually not sure, because with the thought leadership ads, you can see promoted by and then it says the company. But I don't think with a personal post that you can see that it's boosted. Please correct me if I'm wrong. If you see it, send me a screenshot, because I keep my eyes open to see like promoted for like a personal post, and I haven't seen it yet. I'm not sure if just in my feed it didn't show up. With my own post that I promoted, I went onto it and I couldn't see anything, but then I thought maybe it's because it was my own post and that's why I couldn't see it. So I'm actually not sure. All right, Sandy is asking, post image with copy or text only? I think the question is around like assets, what assets to use. And I'm happy to just talk about assets in general because this is always a question that comes up. So best performing assets currently based on the state of the algorithm report. Everyone has like different data. There are like a few companies out there that pay a lot of money towards LinkedIn to have the API to get the data and then analyze the data and say, this is how the algorithm works. Nobody knows how the algorithm works. But it gives us insights into thousands of posts and which ones performed the best. Always you have to take it with a pinch of salt because in the end, they all try to sell their own services off the back of it. And of course, if you look at one report, they have certain statistics that then the solution is with their software. If you look into another post, they have a different kind of angle and it leads to their software. So take it with a pinch of salt. But State of the Algorithm report by Will McTighe and Chris Donnelly, it says number one asset currently is carousels, followed by infographics, followed by images, followed by quote, I think, or text only, it might be the other way around, followed by video, followed by polls. Polls are terrible. So if you post without an image or anything, your chances of being scrolled over are really high because you only take up a little bit of space. So when you do take an asset, carousel, infographic, or a personal image, make sure it's in the 30 by 40 centimeter format because it fills out most of the screen. So you just have more chances of people stopping because you take more of the screen. 85% of people use their phone to scroll on LinkedIn. Make sure that you have very good contrast in terms of coloring, that it's a very easy to read headline, attention grabbing headline with personal images. We know psychologically, I've been talking for a long time, when you see people's eyes, you will stay on the post for longer for whatever reason. So we do see a lot of selfies. I post selfies, they perform well for me, but you don't want to just post selfies because then where's the credibility and where's the excitement and the change? So I also post a lot of pictures that are very, very random and very authentic to me, where I look like a teacup or I'm eating pizza or like anyhow, where I'm being really awkward. What works really well on LinkedIn as well is pictures of you working. So you on your laptop, you speaking, you with a client, you if you're a property developer on site, if that makes sense. So anything that is in a work context. Yeah, I hope that was the question, and I hope this was helpful. Right. I'm not sure if people are still here. Oh my God, there's so many. Oh my God, there's so many questions. I'm sorry. Okay, I can see you guys are still here. I'm actually not sure how to go through all of the questions. What shall we do with the questions? Has anyone a good idea what we can do with all of the questions? Also, let me ask my team, if I close down this session, can I see all of the comments? Yeah, they stay in the thread, don't they? Because what I could do is, I mean, as I said, it's a bit weird talking to myself, but I also did enjoy it. And it looks like that you guys are enjoying it. What I could do is I could take all the questions and do another live at some point and just go through all of those questions. All right, I think, oh, I see a few people are just saying they're still here. Oh, thank you guys. All right, I'm going to wrap up, but I will just waiting for confirmation from my team saying that I can definitely see. Sorry, with the time delay, this is so strange. Like they only see what I'm saying like 30 seconds after I've said it. But yes, team, I'm on my phone. Can you please confirm whether I can see the questions afterwards still? And then, yes, and then I'm happy to just come back to those questions. Also, my DMs are always open. Please slip into my DMs, ask me. They are nuts. It might take me a while to get back to them, but I love talking to you guys. It is me in the DMs. Whenever you see me respond, it is me, tippity tappity. Yeah, and other than this, thank you all. I actually have no idea how many people were on here. Thank you for joining. I hope this was valuable. Thank you for staying so long. I just love my community. Thank you for giving me the trust, and I hope to see you all soon again. All right. Thank you, guys. Bye, everyone.